Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to Essential Issues Weekly, where I talk about DC Comics 1 week after their release on the Ultra tier of the DC Universe Infinite subscription service. Now, if you're on the standard tier of DC Universe Infinite, follow Christian Geek Central on Twitter at Christian_geek, and there you'll get specially labeled notifications of Essential Issues Weekly and the monthly podcast that will coincide with the standard tier release schedule if you would prefer. In each installment, I pick an assortment of topics to talk about as a DC fan and also explore what, if anything, they have to say about the essential issues of real life. Warning, full spoilers for everything I talk about. This is your first and only warning. Many spoilers lie ahead. Okay, we're going to take a look now at comics originally released to the Ultra tier on July 18th, 2023, and there's a lot to get through, so I'm not going to be getting into showing the interior art of these books if you're watching the video version. It's just, lots of cover here. But first off, Superman number 5, June 20th, 2023 is when it hit stands. And this one resolves the cliffhanger that we had in issue 4, where Jimmy shows up in the middle of a fight between Superman and Silver Banshee and professes his love for Silver Banshee, saying, "Don't hurt her, I love her." Was just like, what the crap? And I was really looking forward to whatever the explanation was going to be. Sadly, the explanation is the comic book equivalent, I think, of a music montage, just quick cuts in a flashback of the evolution of their relationship, and it just glosses over it way too much for me. The relationship really feels unjustified because he knows as he's building this relationship with her that she is one of Superman's biggest enemies, and yet he is kind of seeing the good side of her and stuff. And I mean, I get that in terms of like just kind of a metaphor there or a theme, but in this situation, it just seems totally, it makes, I think they missed a huge opportunity to explore some moral complexity and like what really would cause Jimmy to overlook those other elements that make her hugely dangerous, and just continue and maintain this relationship with her. Instead, Jimmy just to me seems completely unreasonable in this issue. Superman, though, in the course of this story, loses his super hearing because of an encounter with Banshee, and then at the end of the issue misses an attempt on Luthor's life so that he's not able to save him from, and so Luthor is left crumpled and bleeding in a jail. And I'm interested in still seeing where the arc is going. I have enjoyed the interplay between Superman and Lex Luthor, but much of this issue was just a disappointing miss for me. Next up, Titans number 2, also released June 20th. And this issue picks up from the cliffhanger in issue 1, where they discover in Titan's Tower Wally West's dead body. He was shot from behind. And so they're in the aftermath of his death trying to figure out what happened. They realize they need to call his wife Linda. They do so, and none other than Wally answers the phone and rushes to Titan's Tower to help them investigate what's going on. And so they're able at this point to kind of theorize that the corpse they have is kind of the future Wally West, provided events aren't, the course of events are not changed. And so now they're trying to prevent his murder. And in this issue, this is the start of a new Titan series where they're really trying to lift them up as taking the place of the Justice League, while the Justice League is no doubt temporarily disbanded. And I'm very open to seeing what the Titans can do and giving DC a chance to really pull me in and invest in the Titans. I've always kind of wanted to, but it's never really grabbed me before. So there's a good introduction in issue 2 to the characters, to their powers, to some of their motivations. For example, Garth, aka Beast Boy or Changeling, or I still haven't figured out what they're calling him here. I think they just keep calling him Garth. Anyway, he cares deeply about animal life, which makes sense. And so when there's a big forest fire, his priority is to do what he can to save the animals. Nightwing has contingencies, he reveals in this issue, to take out all of his teammates. Sound familiar? But unlike Batman, he says, listen, yes, I do, but I'm going to be upfront about it. I'm not going to hide that from you. And so I just appreciate them exploring the relationship dynamics, as I was hoping they would, since these characters have known each other for so long. They also work impressively together in this issue to put out this massive forest fire, and don't pull any punches in leveraging Cyborg's ability to teleport, to create boom tubes. And it just like made me realize the potential for the power level of these characters. That really is how they need to sell the Titans to me. If they're going to replace the Justice League, they need to do some crazy big stories that really show us all the potential of these characters, and that they are every bit as powerful as the Justice League, and therefore up to cosmic level threats or whatever is going to come at the Earth. And the fact that in this issue, Cyborg, along with Raven, who uses her mystical powers to do the same, they create portals in a nearby artificial lake to drop water in just a massive torrent on top of the forest fire to put it out, And I was like, yeah, his teleportation ability through his boom tube tech that's part of his, his whole situation, is really, I think, underutilized in terms of its potential. And so that was the first signal to me that, like, okay, maybe they are really going to start cutting loose with Cyborg and showing us how powerful he can really conceptually be. This issue also continues to introduce the kind of rebranded Church of Blood, of which Brother Blood, famous enemy of the Teen Titans, is the leader. Well, this is a new Brother Blood who comes on a talk show to talk about his church, and which is gaining a lot of ground, becoming a very popular movement in America. And he says that, no, we're the Church of Eternity now. Now, I'm Brother Eternity, and yes, we've got a messy past with what's gone on, but we're really wanting to turn away from that, leave that past behind, and do something new, do something good here. And he actually talks down, by comparison, to establish what their plans are, talks down other religions, and I think you can read between the lines and say he's probably mostly talking about Christianity. But what's interesting is that as he does that, he says the kinds of things that I think many people who feel antagonistic toward Christianity, or certain brands or strands or experiences they've had with Christianity, saying things like, "Oh, all churches are greedy for money. They're preaching health and wealth. They're neglecting the poor. They only offer life after death as a solution instead of solutions now." And at different strands of Christianity, I mean, those criticisms could be levied, but it's just noteworthy to me because he's almost certainly going to be a villain in disguise. And so the fact that he is, I think, kind of set up here as being opposed to what I would say between the lines is Christianity in some sense, it's just interesting that they don't have someone noble that's kind of criticizing Christianity. So in a really roundabout way, it almost seems like the writing is coming a little bit from the perspective of, like they're getting ready to take all these arguments that are levied against some forms of Christianity and ultimately have them come out of the mouth of someone that's going to be a villain. I mean, maybe they'll surprise me and he's not going to, have turned a corner and really be a legitimately good guy. But I think we're just setting up an arc where inevitably he's going to be revealed to, of course, be a villain. And Brother Blood and the Church of Blood is still going to be a huge threat for the Titans. So I appreciate just kind of the complexity that they seem to be playing with right now. The big shocker at the end of this issue is that Tempest/Aqualad, who rejected an invitation to join this new iteration of the Titans, even though he was a classic founding member, he comes on this talk show to show public support of Brother Eternity and the Church of Eternity. And I'm getting I was already last issue, but definitely this issue, I'm getting vibes of okay, celebrity culture endorsing a modern, relatively new religion. Are they doing a Tom Cruise Scientology thing here? It's interesting. It feels a bit like it. I'm really going to be interested to see what they do going forward in Titans. So that's Titans number 2. Next up is the Vigil number 2. This is a new team concept about metahumans that go on black ops missions to destroy or otherwise deal with things that humanity isn't ready to use or to know about yet. The first issue, I feel like, introduced us to the basic concept of the Vigil, this team, and this issue seems to be focusing on, a single character. Maybe it's the start of them focusing on a single character at a time and kind of building them up a bit, which I am very much in support of because I want to invest in character. Arclight is the character they focus on this time. He's got powers powers involving electricity and electromagnetic fields. We dip into his backstory. He's got tragic loss of family in his past, and so I hope they continue doing this. Other team members of the Vigil were still featured in the story, but Arclight certainly was the focus, and so I'm up for them taking a handful of issues and doing this one character after another, so that by the end of issue 6, I can feel like, okay, I know who these characters basically are, what drives them, and now I'm on board to see those personalities bump up against each other and see how they react to different situations. So I'm interested, but of course not yet captivated, because there's a lot of, I think, setting up of character and plot at this point. But yeah, I'm willing to give them that time to continue to set up character and story, though, and there's enough Black Ops-y type morally questionable missions and stuff, and morally questionable leadership in this story to have me somewhat intrigued. So anyway, I'll look forward to seeing what happens in the Vigil number 3, but that's the Vigil number 2. Next up, Cyborg number 2, also June 20th. The cliffhanger of issue 1 revealed that Cyborg's father, who he always had a horrible relationship with, Silas Stone, treated Victor Stone horribly. But anyway, he died in the early pages of the first issue, and the cliffhanger ending was that he's apparently still alive, but inhabiting an android body, or in some way has been converted to energy or electricity or AI or whatever. This issue opens with an inner monologue from Cyborg asking questions about the nature of the soul and what happens after we die. And so because that's kind of the big question is this his dad, or is it just some kind of like a copy of his memories and stuff and his personality traits being simulated really convincingly, and both as an android and a downloaded persona that's now in Cyborg software, his dad, or this copy, this iteration, this simulation of his dad, is talking to him, belittling him, ordering him, telling him what he should do and that he's being stupid for doing other things, And it just strikes me as this literal iteration of what some adults feel and experience, kind of feeling haunted by the voice of their parents that they grew up with, either because they've moved out and they have an estranged relationship, or maybe after a parent has passed away. But this kind of thing is something that adults do experience. Cyborg resists thinking that the android/AI is actually his dad, but he's still haunted by it because it simulates his dad's personality and his memories so effectively. There's still definitely a good amount of action in Cyborg number 2, but it's heavily character oriented, as you can guess from what I've said. That and the philosophical issues of the soul, the nature of the soul, which is acknowledged to be what makes us individuals. Those elements really overcome my dislike for the art that I talked about when I reacted to issue number 1. And so at this point, I'm surprised to say I'm very much in for another issue of Cyborg, despite it not getting off to the most enticing start for me. Okay, next up, Nightwing. Nightwing number 105. And this book it uses a gimmick of all being told from the first person perspective. That's how the art is handled, as though you are playing Nightwing in a first person video game. It's mostly a one-shot story, but it does introduce a villain that heads up a pharmaceutical company that's deemed immoral for their practices. So there's a little bit of potential theme there, I suppose. But I dislike the gimmick issues that will crop up now and then in comics, especially when I'm trying to get to know a comic series, because this isn't indicative of what the book is going to be going forward. I'd be shocked if they just continued with this. It seemed to be marketed as like this, the story was called You Are Nightwing. So I would rather they just stick with the norms of what makes a book strong. Of course, I say that selfishly because I might not mind it if it was a book that I'd been invested in for years and it can be a little change of flavor for one issue. I get that. But when I'm in the mode I'm in right now of trying to figure out, do I want to continue following this book, it's something I just kind of have to be patient and tolerate so we can get back to me really getting a better sense of what the ongoing book is generally like. So I will probably have more to share about the next issue of Nightwing when things are creatively, hopefully, back to normal. And then finally, Batman/Superman, World's Finest number 16, also June 20th. All these June 20th. Now that I have, I guess, accepted that there's a new Mazo android that they're up against, which I just thought, oh, I don't know if I can handle that. And then also a Kryptonite Ultra Morpho. Okay. I had issues with that. It's just a little bit too cheesy and, I don't know, 1960s or 50s or something. But mostly what's going on here is more of the same, which isn't bad. You know, it's adventures with DC characters before they shared as much history, and so the dynamics between them as they interact with each other has a freshness to it that you're not going to get in other books that take place in the present day. And this issue really, even more so than up to this point they'd been doing, widens out the involvement of a roster of DC characters, mostly from the history of the JLA. And so that happens at the cost of focus on individual characters, but it's understandable. They're approaching the climax right now. The next issue is going to conclude this arc, so I'll probably save really more thoughts until then when I have some perspective on the arc as a whole. But for now, it just felt like solid meat and potatoes DC character action. All right, I think those are all of my thoughts for now. As always, I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments below, and please like, share, subscribe. Go to christiangeekcentral.com where you can get links to a bunch of other Christian Geek Central content. I hope that you will join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.